Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ordinary Discipleship Podcast. We are in season 5, and we are so excited to be with you as we share just practical tips and conversations about what it's like to be a disciple and to make disciples here today. I am with the one and only Jessie. Jessie, why don't you take it
Yes.
over right now and you tell them what we're going to talk about today, because I am so excited about it.
Well, we have a special guest today.
What?
We have a special guest. Her name is Reyna, and Reyna is someone who's in my life and part of my church and discipleship and part of the Huology family. And I mean, to be honest, Chris, she's my token Gen Zer.
Did you know that Reyna in Spanish means queen? Did you know that?
Yes, we did.
Did you know that?
We did.
So we are talking to Queen Martinez right now. That's
We
a
are.
pretty big deal. That is
In
a
fact-
pretty big deal.
In fact, her part of her world out in the world is Queen's Catalyst. She knows who she is, and she knows part of what her calling is. So she's my token Gen Zer, and that's part of her identity at this point. Because as I tell Reyna often, she is the voice of her generation, and so she what she says, she has to think about, her responses, because we will extrapolate them to all Gen Zers. So it's just a heavy load, but she bears it well. So Reyna, we're really happy to have you here.
Go ahead, Queen.
Oh, thanks for all that. What I will say is I am just the smallest part of Gen Z. I'm on the early side. I don't even think they would claim me, but that's just how the world has decided that generations work. We just accept their fate.
It's a very Gen Z thing to say right there.
100%.
I'm just stating the facts for the Gen Zs who may eventually listen to this podcast. I didn't claim that. They put that on me. That's just very...
Because they wake up late? Is that what and they wake up a little later than the rest of us? Is that what's going on?
No. They just do what they want.
I see.
We do what we want. Yeah. No,
We do what we want.
The answer.
Got you.
That's very true.
So Reyna,
Yes.
you have had experiences. Hang on, let me cut that part. So Reyna, you've had experiences as a human in this world who cares about discipleship. And I'm just wondering if you could share some of the things like what has it been like for you to try to find somebody to disciple you? And why do you value discipleship? And why have you even had the courage to go and bug people and ask them if they're interested in discipling you?
Yeah, I would say that the earliest experience of discipleship that I received was probably in youth. That's a season of time, I guess when I reference it, it's a season where the church really cares about making sure that you like being in the church. They're like, we love you, let's go have fun. Maybe there's snacks and kids your age, and
snacks.
we're gonna talk about Jesus. And yeah, I think I had some really intentional people when I was not in a very intentional home who cared about me in a way that it was unrelenting, and it was very weird when you don't experience that in your home life, to experience it outside of it, people who don't stop pursuing you. That was very strange. And so I always credit those two people to be my spiritual parents. I would not follow Christ the way I do today had they not been so intentional with me when I was in a season of rejecting everybody. So following that, that was 7 years of my life when I finally decided to go to youth group.
So I have a question. Hold on. I have a question.
Yeah.
I want to stop you. You said you were in a season of rejecting everybody. What's that mean? What do you mean?
Yeah. So as a child, I was very angry. And though you want to be in relationship and have friends and be cared for. The lifestyle I lived, I was not a happy child. And so in order to protect myself, it was easier to try and reject people before they could reject me.
Gotcha.
And those leaders that I talked about in my life, they didn't care. They were like, every week I showed up after like 6 months of not seeing anyone or refusing text messages. It was like, Reyna, what are you doing? How are you? Like, it's been so long. Like, no time passed. And it was, I love you the same time I loved you then as I do today. And
did you feel like it was authentic?
It was evident.
Did you feel like it was
Absolutely.
authentic? Yeah. Okay.
There's a very drastic difference between some of the other leaders I was around in that same youth group. There's another leader there who said they like cared about me and we were very similar, but she just was never genuine. And at the end of the day, like, she wasn't reaching out to me. She didn't care if I didn't reach out to her. And so he ended up being my youth pastor, and the other leader was his wife. So that's why they were like my spiritual parents. It was like, if I couldn't come to youth group, but I was reaching out to them, they were like, we're coming to get you. Like, don't worry, we're coming. We're going to be there. They invited me to all their weird events that I didn't like going to because I'm not social. But they were like, you're coming. We're picking you up. We're going to be at your house in 5 minutes. And I didn't have a lot of that. Like, even at school, when I had friends, like, they wouldn't offer to come and pick me up, or like, I didn't like hang out with people outside of that. And so when I was going to youth group and experiencing like people who really seemed to care, even when I was like, well, my mom's not going to take me, or my parents can't drop me off, or they don't have time, my parents aren't home. Like, it was never oh, well, we'll just see you next time. It was, no, we're coming, we're making a way to come and see you. And so that experience for me was very like crucial to, I guess, even feeling like people could love me despite how like ugly I felt on the inside.
I hope every youth group leader is listening to this right now, like how important that impact is. And my youth group guy, he'll go and pick up a bunch of kids that can't make it to church, and he touches base with them every week. And I think like the reason I asked you did it feel authentic is because I feel like your generation are some of the best, excuse the language, BS decipherers in the world. Like, they know Absolutely. When we're just trying to when we're being authentic. Like, that's the thing I'll applaud your generation on, is that you cut through it right away, and you can tell if somebody's being authentic or if they're just not. So that's really cool.
So Reyna, share a little bit of like what happened then when you're not in quote unquote youth group anymore, and you become that great. Transition into adulthood, and now you're in your early 20s and stuff. Like what is then the discipleship dynamic? What did you experience?
Yeah.
Can you re-ask your question because my internet's cutting out?
Sure. So maybe share with us then how things changed, and going back to your early 20s, and now you're not in youth group anymore, but you're you're a young adult. How is the discipleship experience different for you at that season of life?
Yeah. So immediately following high school, just a place I was in, I asked God to open the door for something else. I didn't have a plan, and he provided an internship at my church. It was like a emerging leadership network, discipleship thing, whatever. And it was really great. I like, it was a space where it had to be intentional. So the leadership was intentional. The group I was with, like, we had to be intentional. It was honestly a little forced. It's fine. I'm antisocial. Sometimes you need that. And it was weird. It was like my youth pastor couldn't really reach out to me anymore because I wasn't a youth kid. I mean, I still had relationship with them. It just looked different. And I was in this internship, and like I had one automatic leader in my life at the time. The program I was in was kind of weird. She didn't necessarily let us have any kind of mentors outside of that. So I went from a youth group space to this really secluded internship space. I left that and like had no idea how to stay connected. When I left that program, it was not on the best terms. And unfortunately, I was exiled a little bit from my church, just how the situation happened. There was some miscommunication on who was being intentional with me after I chose to leave. So I ended up not having anyone reach out to me. And so I felt very isolated. And it was a season of my life where I was like, God, did you not bring me there? Like, did you not build relationship with people in my life in this place? And how am I supposed to like be in relationship now that this is so like tainted, is like how I felt. So yeah, for like a year and a half, it was like 2019, early 2019 to like June of 2021. I wasn't in church. I wasn't like, I was following Jesus, but it was like very surface level even for myself. And it was a weird season. It was like I knew I wanted relationship. I was trying to make friends. I was trying to get connected. I lived in the state of Washington for a year. It was really like a weird time. I did another internship. Was like, had a great time at the start. Then it was weird and the leadership was weird. And at the end of 2021, I was like, God, I need your advice. Like, I know I haven't really been following you, but I need something else. If this isn't working, I want more. I like need more than this. I need relationship. I need community, consistency. Like, I will do whatever it takes. Just let me have something else. And I felt like I was supposed to come back to Denver and plug back into that same church that I left that hurt me. And I was like, God, you're freaking psycho. What do you mean? And going back to a place that hurt me? Like, what are you talking about? And and to this day, like, I will explain it. Like, my heart is at this church and I can't describe why. So I came back and it's been hard. I don't really know why it's so hard. Like, I know I'm antisocial, but being in a place where I want discipleship and I want to learn and grow and develop, like, I want to know more about what it means to be in relationship with Jesus and be someone who's learning about God. Like, what does that look like? And it doesn't have to look like one thing, but so I came back like, all right, I'm committed. I'm doing this. I'm here. I'm not running away when my feelings get hurt. And I started to ask a few people in certain like conversations with people in leadership that I was around. It was like, oh, Reyna, you're going through like this really great season. Like, do you have someone who's mentoring you? And I was like, no, like, I don't. I imagine that God will bring it when it's supposed to happen. Like, I don't feel called to like ask anyone specifically. And
so you're praying for it, but
yeah, nothing's coming.
That's kind of all the end to it. You're like praying and asking God, I want to get mentored, but I don't know who to talk to about it.
But the other thing I want to add to that is that you're describing something that happens to so many young people. Like, they have this powerful youth group, right? And they're part of it, and they have people picking them up. They have people feeding into them and then loving them. And then they graduate and they don't have a tie back to like the bigger church so much. It's just the youth group. And then they feel kind of lost. Like, what the heck do I do right now? I'm too old to go back to the youth group. I don't feel like I'm part of the main church. Like, I'm kind of lost. And so,
right, you're not part of marrieds or kids, or
exactly.
You don't have kids, so you're not in that group.
Right. Yeah. Right. You're not the 30 somethings. Like, there is this kind of wilderness period for so many kids that like go to college or graduate college, they come back and they're like, where do I belong?
Mm-hmm.
So, Reyna, what happened when you started to like ask people to disciple you?
Yeah, so following those conversations, I was like, okay, I guess I'll start trying to ask people. Like, I don't want to ask any random Joe. Like, I need someone who knows me or is willing to get to know me.
Good idea.
I'm still very fresh off the like
Craigslist
rejection
ad for
space.
somebody to mentor you. Yeah, no, that's bad. That's bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I can be a little bit of a tough personality. I can recognize that in myself. And so I was very like, I want to make sure that this person, like, I can tell that this person is genuine, even if they're like, we don't have a relationship. Like, God, you're gonna direct me. I talked to a few different people. I started with my church, and I guess I didn't necessarily phrase it in like, will you be my mentor? It was trying to like feel out if they would even want to have relationship with me. Like, I'm in this church, I'm here, I want to lead, I'm doing this different ministry and that different ministry. And it was like, oh, like you, like if that's what you want, like what is discipleship for you? So your question, Chris, you were like, when someone just recently asked you, you were like, well, what does that even look like? It's like, I don't know what that looks like. I have no idea. Like, just help. Like, that's part of the learning process, is learning what discipleship looks like, because they don't teach you that in school or in youth group, or they're just like, come hang out, have fun. And you're like, okay, cool. What's after that? And yeah, so I started with people in my church. They were like, well, like, whatever you want. And I was like, I don't know what I want. Okay. And so then I kept praying, and I talked to a few people outside of my church. It was like, oh, you should probably seek people inside your church. Like, the people I talked to were also very busy. And I was like, I tried, like, nobody offered, nobody seems like they want to do it. It's more like every conversation I had was like, well, if you want mentorship from me, that's fine, but like, are you sure that's what you want? Was how I left every conversation. It was like, I'll do it if that's what you want, but is that what you want? Am I the person you want discipleship from? Like, do you want to be mentored by me? And it was like, if I'm asking, then yes. Like, I mean, maybe I didn't say it directly, but if I'm talking about it with you, then I trust you enough to have conversation about discipleship with me. I'm like, not being like, oh, if somebody would disciple me, that'd be so great. It was like, I really feel this need to learn and grow and develop. Like, I've hit as far as I can by myself, and I just want to learn. And it just didn't seem like anybody was interested in partnering with me in doing that. And so I was like, I don't.
That's interesting. And Jessie, I'm sure that you've had people come to you and say, will you mentor me? And I've had it happen now in the last Reyna raised her hand. I've had it happen now in the last 3 years. And I think sometimes as a leader, sometimes I get imposter syndrome. I'm like, I was mentored by Jacob's dad, and he just told me to like kind of follow him. And I just followed him. I watched what he did. We went and got hot dogs at the Checkers across the street. We would have conversations. And I don't know, like sometimes as a leader, I get intimidated by the process. Like, am I going to, and it's not that I don't want to do it. It's like, I wonder if I would do a good job at actually doing it. And I get insecure, like in my core. I don't know, Jessie, you can speak more on that maybe.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, you know, knowing some of the people that Reyna actually went and talked to, that insecurity is very common, which is why we have this podcast, right? Which is why we talk about these issues, to help people feel less insecure when someone comes to them and says, hey, can you help me grow where I can't get to by myself? And, you know, the insecurity can come from a lot of things, whether they don't think they have anything to give, they don't know if they have time. You know, a lot of people are busy, and so they don't know what the commitment looks like. And it's really interesting the way that we would think about the commitments in our life. Like, if somebody says, hey, I am interested in what you would have to teach me about God. Like that's, look, Reyna speaks on behalf of Gen Z. I'm going to speak on behalf of Reyna right now. Like that's a privilege and an honor. Like you should feel humbled by that and say, what can you do to like figure out how to have time in your life, right? So what can you do to have time in your life? How can you, even if it's like once a month, because that may be a really good life-giving rhythm. And for Reyna, when Reyna had a conversation with me and we talked about it, like I carved out time in my life. And then I decided to start paying Reyna to be in that part of my life. And she helps me, as a part-time assistant. But yeah, that journey alongside, let's together. I'm not really a formal discipleship person with a curriculum. Other people might be, and that's their personality type, and then that's great, and that's what they should do. That's not really me. So I'm like, Jacob's dad and was come hang out, and I will tell you how I'm processing my life. We'll process your life. We'll see what God wants to teach us both through that. And it's the good, the bad, the ugly. Reyna sees me on the good days and the ugly days. But I think part of the insecurity is people, I don't know what kind of expectation they have for themselves.
Right.
That causes them to say no to that.
Well, I just had it happen yesterday. I had a guy, a young kid walk into my office. He's like, I think I want to be a pastor. Can I be your intern? I'm like, I don't know what that looks like, honestly. I can't really afford to pay you anything. He's like, that's fine. I'm like, oh, I thought you would say no after that. Okay. Yeah, let's figure something out, And so, like, how did it start with you two? What did the process look like in the beginning when you guys were meeting?
Well, it is a little different than Jessie described. When I first came to her,
she's gonna fact check my fake news here.
I really didn't want to fact check, but yeah, I had initially come to her after like talking to like several different people, and at the time she actually didn't have time for me. I can be a pretty much like heavy emotional wreck often, and at the time I was very much so. But what I appreciated about my interaction with Jessie was, even though she couldn't mentor me, she helped me find resources to help me in the season I was in, which is not what I had experienced with anybody else. It was just like, oh, well, you should talk to somebody at your church, or oh, you should talk to this leader at your church, or you should talk to this person. It was like I had already talked to them. I had reached out to them, and though they were willing, they didn't seem eager. They didn't seem like they also wanted to benefit from that. So after that initial interaction and setting me up with some other resources, she came to me a year later. It was really funny. She asked me to help her with her taxes.
God, Reyna, the backstory is God didn't go. Like, he was bugging me, and he's like, make space, figure out how to make space. So keep going.
Yeah, so like I didn't know that, and God just kept telling me to be present. And she reached out to me and asked me if I could help her with her taxes. And for nobody here who knows me, obviously, I'm the biggest type A nerd who loves anything admin space. That's just who I am as a person. It feeds my soul. So I was like, yes, absolutely. I will come and do this spreadsheet that seems super tedious and absolutely insane to do. I will happily do it. And it took me probably like 2 hours. And then I went home. She like showed it to her husband, Bob. Shout out to Bob. And he was like, they were both like very impressed with my work. Sorry, I won't say shocked, because I know I'm pretty cool. She came back to me probably like a month or two later and asked me if I'd be interested in working with her.
But you always have to do her taxes. No, I'm just kidding.
Partially, yes. But now I just get paid for it.
I'll mentor you if you do my taxes.
One, it wasn't even that. Like, I had no expectation. It was can you like help me in this season of where I need help? And I was like, you know what? I would love that. Like, I knew going in that this was like a loophole into her mentoring me because I'd be spending time with her. And that's like, I guess like that's the thing for me. If you're in relationship with somebody, you're mentoring each other. Like I had more mentorship in my friendships with my peers than I was having mentorship in my life from leaders. Even though that's what I felt like I needed and what I wanted, it just seemed like it was easier to just have those hard conversations with my friends than it was to try and have those hard conversations with leaders who didn't necessarily seem like they had the time or felt comfortable giving me their time. And I was like, loophole, Jessie now has to mentor me. She's not getting a choice.
When we call that the Jedi Ninja discipleship technique.
And I really had been praying about it. I was like, God, you're going to figure it out. I don't have to chase it down. I don't have the energy to chase it down. Like, these people will either want to do it and ask me or they won't. And Jessie was the first person to reach out to me. And then about 3 months later, I was helping our denomination with a young adults conference. And one of the leaders I was working with there, I had expressed the same thing. Like, I am having a hard time. Everyone keeps saying I need a mentor, but nobody's offering to mentor me. And every time I ask, everyone seems weird. Like, they don't want to, but they also are open. And it's like, well, I don't want to do it if you don't want to do it. Like, don't waste my time. Like, I have to go find somebody who cares. I don't need to waste time with you if you don't care. And so she had also asked me, and I just came to this realization that it didn't have to be so formal. And I'd read Jessie's book, and every page I was like, this is exactly how I feel. Why does nobody know this? Like, this is so simple. It's not, will you be God in my life? Will you help me meet God for the first time? Like, I just meet God in a way that I'd not experienced him before. You have experience in this that I don't. I'm 20. At the time I was 22. It's like I'm 22, 23, and all I have is bad experiences in life and leadership, and I'm asking for help, which like I think is even beyond, like, I've heard a lot from young adults in my age range who went into these discipleship programs, and it's this like everyone's getting church hurt and everyone and their mother's sad and sassy about it, and we still show up. We still want it. We're a little sensitive because the people we trusted to lead us are the same people who either hurt us or neglected us or left us when we left the program. And now it's like, I have to trust that you're not going to abandon me again when it's not convenient for you to be in my life anymore. And that's scary. Like, that's scary for me. Like, I have to trust that Jessie won't be like, sorry, Reyna, I found some cool, great new assistant and we're done now. Like, my world would shatter like a year ago. Now I'd probably just be like, well, it's been good. But that's the like, that's the like time that we've built, is like knowing who Jessie is. She's not going to abandon me if I move on or she needs to find somebody else. Like, if our partnership ends, like, our relationship is still there. But 2 years ago, I'd been like, well, I'm probably never going to see Jessie again. Sad day. And if I'm showing up, I'm willing. I'm not just wasting my time being somewhere. I don't have the courtesy to do that. My own personal well-being needs people who are genuine in my life. And if I'm not receiving that, then I'm not wasting my time anymore. Like, more now. But that is how I've always walked with it, is like, don't waste my time because I don't want to waste your time. Clearly there's somebody in your life who you would rather mentor, is how I felt. I'm a lot angsty. At the time I was even worse. And it's like, you clearly have somebody you would rather mentor. Don't waste your time on me. I'll go find somebody who wants to. And God will bring that person. I don't have to fight for it.
So, Reyna, what I love about what you're illustrating is the persistence, the God-driven persistence, because not everybody has that. I mean, there's a lot of people
No.
out there who know the right thing and don't do it, or they know the right thing, and as soon as it gets a little difficult, there's some obstacles, like they don't. But what you're describing is a type of resiliency that you don't always see around discipleship, and wanting to grow, wanting to be mentored, and your trust in the Lord to provide that. So,
Mm.
I love your heart about this topic. I love your heart about your willingness to keep grinding, to follow God, and to grow in however he wants to grow you. And the way that you actually do look to him to be that source and that supply. You understand that a person is just a human, so there's, and because you speak for all Gen Z, like, I would think that many Gen Zers actually, I mean, a lot of the ones that I've talked to do have that same perspective. It's not a God complex of, I'm going to follow this mentor and they are my everything and they're my pseudo parent, or they're my, it's not a pedestal. It's just a relationship. And there's a healthy perspective about what's realistic. I think you all have a lot of realism. There's no idealism. That's why you're so angsty. You need a little more optimism and idealism. You might benefit from that. Reality sucks. So, it's okay to ignore it every now and then, just a little bit. Reality bites, as they say.
Oh,
But Chris, as you're hearing Reyna, like, what do you want? I'm curious from both of you, because you guys are both coming at this from slightly different perspectives. Like, Chris, what would you want to remember from what Reyna is saying? And Reyna, what would you want people to take who may have been approached by someone and they got all angsty and insecure in the conversation? They said no, or got weird about it, and what would you want them to know? So, Chris, what are you taking away?
yeah.
Reyna, what would you want people to know?
What I'm hearing from Reyna is just complete authenticity. And I think sometimes the intimidating factor when you become the mentor and not the mentee is that you don't feel equipped and you think you have to have all the answers. And what I think Reyna is saying is that she's looking for authenticity. She's looking for time, and she's looking for someone that genuinely cares about her spiritual well-being. And to me, that's way less intimidating. And I can do that. I can carve out a few hours a week for somebody that's earnestly seeking the Lord and not wanting me to be their spiritual father, or not wanting me to be the person with all the answers. And I think in the past, sometimes that's what I was intimidated by. Like, and so it's refreshing to hear Reyna's take on it. And again, it's like really refreshing to hear just how incredibly authentic she is. And that's what I've got from so many of Reyna's generation. And I don't know if there was a vote to make Reyna in charge of this generation, but really, really good. Really good. And maybe that's why your name is Queen. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I would say that encompasses really my heart behind discipleship. Like, it doesn't have to be all like pretty and fancy. Like, I'm not that. I am a hot mess. And honestly, I'm gonna get off this call and probably cry. Like, that's just the reality of the life I live in. My generation is so exposed to the reality of the darkness that is the world. Like, our phones give us direct access to how horrible the world is out there. And how do you have hope, and how do you have peace in the midst of that? Like, I don't know. I mean, I've learned how to do that, like, but how do you have support in that? Like, I don't know. For a long time, I just had to support myself. And it was like, I don't even know how to talk to people about the darkness that's in me. Like, let alone the darkness that's outside of this. Like, how do I do that? How do I feel safe enough with somebody to talk about the like hardest parts of myself? So not just for like getting advice, but so that I can realize those.
Mhm.
And you have to be in a safe place to experience those moments where you can have that. And if you
Yeah.
aren't even willing to see if relationship with me, not even just as a like mentor, but as a person in my life, like a potential spiritual aunt, mother, father, uncle, brother, cousin, sister, like it's not that deep. Like you're teaching me how to seek God in these moments, not to seek you. Like it'll start out that way, but like the whole point of discipleship, the whole point of Jesus seeking out the disciples was to teach them how to teach others to follow God first. Like,
Yeah.
and that was a whole thing. My whole tangent in the midst of my angst was like, Jesus sought the disciples
Mhm.
and he asked them, he didn't say, "You're coming with me." He said, "Hey, let's go have
Follow
a
me.
good time."
Right. Yeah.
And they were like, "You know what? That sounds pretty cool. Relationship? That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm down for that." And it's never easy, like being, especially like thinking about having to disciple the next generation. I'm a little scared. But but they need it just as much as I did. And how do I set even just my peers up for success in seeking discipleship? And how do I talk to the next generation, be like, hey, if they're here and they're asking, they want it. And sure, maybe they'll run away, but they'll realize that that was probably the most authentic interaction they could have had, and they'll desire it more.
That's
So
awesome.
good.
I think
Yeah.
that's what I think I took away most from youth group is I could not live life with surface level interactions anymore. I honestly never could. I was a very self-aware child. All the like fluff of like the awkwardness, the sadness, all of it, like it was like, how do I get out of this? What can I learn to develop and grow? And like my youth pastor and his wife were that for a season, and then the director of my internship. And now like Jessie's part of that in my life. My friends are part of that in my life. And I'm willing, I'm here. And I think that's true to my whole generation. We're willing. You just have to be honest and, even just a little ugly in your honesty. We're going to know. You said like we're BS detectors. We are. The moment I can tell that you're not super genuine, and it's not even a like, oh, I don't care. It's now I'm insecure because you don't want me. I'm sorry. Like, let me go right now. I'm bye. Like, I'm sorry I interrupted your day. And it's like, if I'm here, I'm willing. I'm not wasting my time, especially as a Gen Z who could go spend 4 hours getting my dopamine hit on TikTok. I don't need to seek you out if I'm here and I'm asking you should take note as leaders.
I hope they did. Reyna Martinez, you are an absolute gem. Your humility, your passion for Jesus, your sincerity. I think old people like me have a lot to learn from people like you. And I just appreciate you. And God bless you in your journey. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Ordinary Disciple podcast. Jessie, I have a quick question. If people want to learn more, this is one of the early episodes, I think. Where do they go? Where do they find out more about Ordinary Discipleship?
Yeah, you can always go to whoology.co. That's WHOOLOGY.co. We've got a Bible study. We've got team training, webinars, things like that. So you can check out whatever we're currently offering there at whoology.co.
Awesome. Thank you again, Reyna. Jacob, thank you. You're very quiet this episode, but we saw you. And Jessie, as always, you're the best. And we'll join us next time for another episode of Ordinary Discipleship Podcast. Thanks, guys.